Welcome back, folks. Thank you so much for tuning in. I super appreciate it. Well, we are basically halfway through the marathon as far as games goes, but let's do a list for the next couple of weeks to help me get ready for what is to be reviewed on the horizon. This week, we're going to be looking at the top 10 best Zelda soundtracks. Let's get going. Number 10, Legend of Zelda Wind Waker. The Legend of Zelda Wind Waker is a solid entry in the series, and I have to say the music is very good for the series, although I wouldn't call it perfect. And it's not that it's not great, but with the dungeon themes being as meh as they are, the soundtrack is great, but isn't spectacular. I do think the soundtrack is awesome enough, and I love how it sounds. It has that sense of adventure which really pushes it to the top 10 best. Number 9, Zelda 1. Yes, I know what you're thinking. This is so simple. Why is it above Wind Waker? Well, I like all the tunes in this game. Unlike Wind Waker, I just think for an 8-bit and simple soundtrack, this game has incredible tunes that are to die for. Not the best soundtrack or best 8-bit soundtrack, but this is the nostalgia soundtrack, and it sounds so awesome. Number 8, Zelda Breath of the Wild. Zelda Breath of the Wild probably has the most underrated soundtrack in the series. But man, I love the soundtrack for this game. The piano with a mix of other great instruments really do give the situation so dire. I love the soundtrack for this game. It really makes a great game into an amazing game just on the soundtrack alone. Number 7, Zelda Link's Awakening. Well, I have to put the Switch version on this list. The updated soundtrack for Link's Awakening is just so amazing, and it really makes this game stand out to be an absolutely amazing game. I love the soundtrack for this game. There are better tunes out there and better soundtracks, but every tune in this game is just perfection, and I love the soundtrack so much. Number 6, Zelda 2. This is a simplistic soundtrack done right. Zelda 2 is an amazing 8-bit soundtrack. I love tapping my foot to every tune of this game. It is just so amazing, and I love the soundtrack for this game. It has some of my favorite tunes in the series, and it really does have a sense of adventure like Wind Waker, but more 8-bit. This soundtrack is awesome, so go listen to it. Number 5, Zelda Skyward Sword. This soundtrack was amazing and still is amazing for this game. I love the Legend of Zelda Skyward Sword's music. It just gives the ultimate sense of adventure. I'm so happy I was able to experience this game just to get the music in it alone. Skyward Sword has one of the most underrated soundtracks not only in Zelda, but in gaming history. Number 4, Zelda Twilight Princess. I know people are going to give me grief by saying why I love the soundtrack more than most of the games in the series, and I lied last week. This is my third favorite 3D Zelda game. I think the dungeon themes with the other themes are just awesome and so freaking remarkable. This game's soundtrack is awesome and I love it so much. Number 3, Legend of Zelda Link to the Past. Yeah, y'all didn't think I would just not count down without a Legend of Zelda Link to the Past. You're crazy if you think that I wouldn't put this game on the list. Not only does it have a great soundtrack, but it has one of the best soundtracks of all time. Every theme taken with extreme care and just sounds so Super Nintendo. This game's soundtrack is amazing, and that's all. Number 1 and 2, Legend of Zelda Majora's Mask and Legend of Zelda Ocarina of Time. This one may seem like a cop-out, but hear me out. I love both soundtracks, they're just the best two in the series to me. Look, my favorite game of all time has changed to be these two games, and the same with the soundtracks. I cannot decide which is better. The Legend of Zelda Majora's Mask soundtrack to me has one word: dark and creepy. This game is the darkest game in the series in my opinion, and the amount of dread that you will feel is so amazingly disgusting, but will give you a sense of urgency you need to save the world in 3 days. Ocarina of Time just sounds great. I see all the time, even in Fortnite YouTubers like CyberPK use Ocarina of Time's music, and man, I just love how this game soundtrack makes me feel. It's just wonderful. Well, that's it for this week. If you like my opinion, that's awesome. If you have a different opinion, that's awesome as well. Let me know in the comments which one you think is the best soundtrack. Thanks for watching, folks, and I'll see you in the next episode.